ask you to stick around.
Yes.
We're going to engage you in a thoughtful fireside chat. So I have the opportunity to introduce our moderator, Ms. Erin Miller. So if our moderator and our panelists can join us. So Ms. Miller, Erin Miller, is the Executive Director of the Space Information Sharing and Analysis Center, Space ISAC. Erin leads the global effort to secure the space industry, and under her leadership, Space ISAC has developed operational capabilities critical to the resilience of space systems. She's widely recognized for her work fostering innovative partnerships across government, industry, and academia, and for launching several national security initiatives, including the Air Force's first cyber-focused design studio and space accelerator. So Erin, I cede the floor to you.
Thank you. Thank you, NICE and NIST, for putting together an incredibly robust set of panelists and discussions. We really are going to climb higher. I can feel it. And in order to climb these days, if you're going to climb anything, you absolutely have to have space systems. Between the gyroscope on your phone and the GNSS capability, you're dependent on space systems for your life while you're climbing. So for things like that, where we're truly invested in life-saving technology, we've got to see the commercial sector invest. So our panel today is going to discuss workforce and training and aligning those initiatives. But I want to start by setting the stage by reminding you here how pivotal of a time we live in. Between the geopolitical dynamics across different nation states and their activities and the amount of commercial investment we're seeing in space systems, it is starting to change the game. Our critical national infrastructures, as Renee pointed out, are wholly dependent on our space systems, and that's different than what we've seen in the past. These space systems are also different than terrestrial systems, and that means we have to think differently about how we approach them and our training and our different security initiatives. So unlike water or electricity or traditional IT, space system security creates new architectures. New evolving technologies like quantum, when applied to space systems, have to be thought through differently. And we have to develop new tools like Aerospace Sparta, the NIST overlays for space, our IEEE Secure by Design standard that's going to come out hopefully this year. So today's panel, we're going to have a thorough discussion on some of these topics and hopefully inspire some of you, and I look forward to hearing your questions afterwards and hearing how you feel you fit in this ecosystem. So today I have with me Renee, of course, who's already introduced herself, and Dr. Belgwith, Santa, if you don't mind me calling you that. So I would love to go ahead and read your bio, but I'm just going to have to encourage our audience to go read it on LinkedIn because I cannot read the whole thing. She has done so much. Dr. Santa Belgwith is a senior lecturer in cybersecurity at the University of Bristol in UK, in the United Kingdom. So you've traveled all the way here to be with us. Thank you so much. And her current research focuses on security and privacy in distributed systems, such as investigating security issues in satellite systems, autonomous vehicles, smart cities, and intelligent transportation systems. Your recent work is involving threat modeling of space system security in the presence of AI and ML models, and investigating quantum computing threats to critical national infrastructure. Dr. Belgwith is also looking at privacy issues in distributed systems, such as privacy-preserving smart home applications and the application of the right to be forgotten in machine learning. Her expertise in technical aspects of cybersecurity, combined with her deep understanding of legal requirements and social implications, enables her to research and follow an interdisciplinary approach to solve cybersecurity issues in distributed systems, especially with a focus on the implications of using new technologies. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much, Erin.
My first question for you is for you, Sana. I want to ask you about more about your story, because you've gotten here by going on a journey, and you've made the choice to investigate space cybersecurity. So if you could tell us more about what's driving you to make that decision and how you got down this path.
All right. Well, that's a long story, actually, but I'll try to summarize it. So I'm by background, I'm an engineer in telecommunication, but then when I finished and I got an opportunity to do a PhD, I chose to do it on cloud computing security. When I started in 2013, it was just the boom about cloud computing, like you hear now about AI. So I was always interested in the next new technology. So I started looking at the security of cloud computing, When I finished my PhD, I started my postdoc, and I got larger into distributed systems, name it, IoT, software-defined networks, and I kept going into cloud computing. And I had this interest always in making a positive impact, especially a social one, but also to look at the next problem and the next technology. And I kept going into ultra-large scale systems, all the systems that critical national infrastructure is one of those, where you have interconnected systems where the security is problematic. You cannot think of it as one silo, but it's a combination of problems, and you need to think of it as a system. And in the recent years, I couldn't think of a larger system than space systems, basically, because that's the largest we can think of. It has a huge complexity, lots of challenges. It's an intersection of technologies, human and environment, which is fascinating for me as a researcher. That increases the challenge, but also it makes it very rewarding. So I started engaging with industry in the area in the UK, and that's how I got to know Aaron and the Isaac. Because I always believe, as I said, I believe in the social positive impact. So I wanted to always think of the bottom-up approach, to go to the people that are working in this area and understand their problems. And from there, drive my research and find out how I can help them secure space systems. And as Rennie was saying, so space system, I mean, historically they were, we call it secure by obscurity, because they were all military defense things. In the last years, we have all these applications, and we all rely on space systems. So if I manage to contribute a bit in securing them, I think I will make that positive impact that I'm always striving for. Yeah, so that's kind of what drives me into this.
Yeah, you made some really good points. Having Bristol University have an emphasis on space system security is a big deal. And I mean, Renee, you being here and the decisions that you made to embrace cybersecurity at NASA, that's also a big deal. Yeah. It's making it so that this is less of a defense military issue. For us to have a workforce that actually addresses space system cybersecurity, it can't be strictly a military and defense issue. It has to be about people's lives and safety and public interest. So, Renee, you talked about the importance of workforce development. Can you tell us the ways in recent years that you've seen collaborative initiatives help us to improve our overall awareness of security frameworks?
Yeah, thank you very much, Erin. And just as a side, folks on my team helped set up the Space ISAC. And then part of that was as I was gaining in my knowledge of what was going on in space with cybersecurity as well as the emerging threats, it just became so obvious to me that the information needed to be shared and learned from and invite more brains into the process, so to speak. I'm going to go back to go forward. So how does, first you guys need to know, because I just don't want this to look like I'm like fake or anything. I have a Bachelor of Arts in economics. I can't sit still, so I've had no other formal education. However, life has taught me a lot. Thanks. So when I say there's a place for you in space, there is, absolutely. When I got to NASA, I was just a few months in as a failed deputy CIO, and I was promoted to the CIO position. And the White House called. Yes, that one, not just one down the street. And it was the first ever federal CISO, General Greg Tuhill, which I'm still friends with now. He called and says, hey, we got to come in and chat with you at NASA because you guys are a serious problem to national security and at risk of being cut off. And NASA is not militaristic, sorry, we're civilian, but we do a lot of research with our military partners as well as science partners and our international partners as well. So he came in and he basically said, I don't know if anybody knows of Charlie Bolden, he was the administrator at the time, and it was him and a couple of the folks, myself and my CISO, and Greg comes in, he says, you guys are really bad at cybersecurity and you need to get better, especially in space. And as only Charlie can do, lovely man. And he is a Marine Corps general, so he does have a side to him. He looks across the table to me and he says, Renee, could you just take care of that? what does one say to Charlie? Charlie? Sure. I leaned over to my CISO. Can we be done by Thursday? What are you going to do, right? It's just relieve the tension and go forward. So that's what started our journey to change NASA. But we couldn't do it alone, and we knew that others had to come with us on this journey. There was already a group of international CIOs that get together, Germany, France, Canada, Japan, and then European Space Agency. UK at the time was still nascent, but they participated through ESA. So by bringing the European Space Agency, we got a lot of countries in that one. And at our first meeting, we came up with our topics, and of course, cyber, cyber, cyber. But there are restrictions on exchanges in the technical world internationally. So like, okay, it's easy to have actually a cyber non-classified discussion if you just come up with the stories to go along with it. Because you don't have to say who. You eventually need to know the techniques and that are used, but not to get yourself organized on a strategy to go forward. So at our first meeting, discovered they all use NIST. So I was like, well, there's half the problem gone. And now we could work together. So across the globe, and we operate in Russia, just reminding you again, I've been, my team was really funny. They wanted me to buy a USB port rocket eraser to bring back to the cyber team that we would purchase in Kazakhstan. We were in Baikonur, which is the rocket city of sorts in that. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's really funny. They'd love me for that one. Because we're pretty sure it was filled with something nefarious. And so here we were, back to a framework. NIST was not required outside the boundaries of the United States. And here we were, we could sit down and start to work on securing our networks. It was a flat network, and most of you probably understand what that means. It was flat. There was no difference between what was going on with Voyager to, let's see, Juno, which we crashed into a planet. That was just really cool. Yes, it was crashed into Jupiter. That was just so cool to do. But it was just one flat network. Now, International Space Station was separate because there's human lives at the end of that IT, and that's just scary. And so we started to work together using NIST and everybody working on not only compliance, but resilience, because in space, if you'll remember Apollo 13, resilience is absolutely key when you are operating in certain environments, including remote military environments and that. And so NIST, I point to as a way that you can reach across cultures and countries and operations in order to come together to figure out how to solve hard problems. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, and thank you so much for your leadership. I mean, I can't really thank you enough. My job is because of you, so thank you. So my next question is for both of you, Sana and for Renee. Since both of you have been laying foundations and groundwork for years in your fields, and you understand what it takes to lay a strong foundation, then we need to start doing some projecting of what the long-term strategy is to build up a competent workforce in cybersecurity, space, and intelligence. So I'm interested in both of your thoughts on this topic. Sana, why don't we go to you first?
I mean, I don't know what we call this strategy in a kind of technical term, but I would say there are two pillars to this, I believe. The first is awareness, and the second is collaboration. And I will draw from what Renee said already. So awareness is very important in this field because as I face every day, cybersecurity is perceived as an overhead, as the bottleneck, as the least of the priority. Why we do it, there's nothing, that can happen today. So it's a future problem. So increasing the awareness among stakeholders, the same example that Renee said just now about NASA, is like pushing stakeholders, whether it's government or the industry, to think about cybersecurity actually as an opportunity, as a driver for growth. And including that in space systems would not only make our life resilient, it will also protect the next generation. Because as you were saying, is what we build now as a satellite probably will last for the next 50, 60 years, right? And well, I mean, I probably I'm more a scientist, so I would say it's not security by design anymore. I think we should secure a compromised system now, because all our systems are compromised somehow. So we tolerate certain level of threats, but we need to be ready for those. So I don't think we can secure by design a satellite we're building now that will be there in 2050, basically, because the threats are very different. So the awareness will serve into investing in this field, into building the next solutions, into creating standards that are ready for not what we have now, but what we will have in 100 years. That's how we kind of drive this, this growth and the inclusion of cybersecurity in our thinking from the start until kind of launching the satellite and keeping it working. Because space system is not only the satellites as well, it's the ground stations, and that's where most of the problems can happen. People would think, okay, it's a satellite, it's out there, you can't reach it. No, you can, actually, and it's proved by science. So awareness is key here, because that drives, as I said, the effort into building the workforce, into training them, into giving them the tools to be able to react and to defend what we have. The second one is the collaboration, which will be drawn from awareness. Once you get people aware, they will get together, they will talk to each other like you did, and they will create the next solution. Because what I love about space systems is not something that is UK only or Europe only, it's something that everyone on the globe is benefiting from, and it's underpinning every kind of simple aspect of our lives. So if we lose it, the impact is huge, right? So, I mean, securing it will make the positive impact that I'm thriving for. And the collaboration is only the key between government, industry, academia, defense sector, name it, and internationally as well, because this is not an effort that one country can do. It's an effort. I mean, I really love what Isaac is doing, because it's bringing the countries together. We're creating that community that we all kind of think about the same objectives and work towards the same objectives. Once we do that, we have our workforce trained, resilient, and we have a pipeline of workforce, which is important because, as I said, this is a system that will last for the future. So we need, not my age, I'm probably young, but I mean, there are the youngest that we need to care about and get them into this pipeline.
Yeah, I like that you said the awareness and standards, because I recently had to make up some stuff that I thought was going to be the future of space system security, which I'm hoping is informed, and I didn't just completely wing it. And what I said was that we're entering into the consensus building stage. So what you said actually confirms that this is not too far off from reality, is that we have to have continued awareness across Australia, US, UK, Japan, EU countries, but keep building consensus. And the way that it seems like we're going to do it is actually in large part through our universities. We have so many universities that have joined the Space ISAC, and I'm just thrilled about the potential here. So now I want to turn it to you, Renee, and ask you about some foundational work you've done and where you think the long-term strategy needs to go here.
Yeah, so I'm going to begin with first the 50s, just a little while ago. And that is the signing of treaties for the peaceful use of space. Those treaties are still in operation today. Space is owned by no nation. There's no planting a flag, including the moon. I know people will debate this. Not even just our moon, Jupiter's moons, anything like that. And this is where we have to always begin, is space is for all of humankind. The Pope, the one that died recently, launched a satellite, I believe in 2020, with a message of for peace within our universe and universes beyond that. That's how strongly felt peaceful use of space is across the globe. But that doesn't mean it's everyone that believes that way. Since those treaties were signed, there are new countries that have gotten involved in space. A lot of African countries now have satellites. They were not signatories to it, but we still expect them to operate that way. There are more commercial satellites than there have ever been. And in fact, there are more commercial satellites than nation-owned satellites. So the peaceful use of space operations has tipped. And commercial companies need to understand when you're in space, you are operating universally, that's for humor, but you're operating internationally. You're up there with your friends in a crowded area operating, so be responsible. And they don't always do that. And so the ways to get there, and I agree with all the remarks, Sana, that you have made, and Aaron, that you have made, I think it boils down to a couple of things. Stories, proof, and a good crisis. Stories are the part where you can actually talk to someone and capture their attention in the first 10, 15 seconds. It used to be 30 seconds, but nowadays with all the social media, you've got like this to get their attention. Short of slide tackling them, I played soccer, so I always thought that was an option in the office, but apparently it wasn't. I didn't use it, but I thought about it a couple of times. Stories allow people just to pause and hear you. And your stories need to be aligned with the way they work in their domains. So you've got to do a lot of work to get there. The second thing is the data, the proof, and how to solve problems. I don't know how many times I heard that we don't have budget for cyber on the satellite. But you know we could catch and release a satellite? We could do that long before I came along to talk about cybersecurity. We really can, and that is a non-classified thing, because we had to fix it once. So in-orbit servicing is a business line, and it is beginning to take off as a business line. Refueling, fixing, you name it, it's happening. One day they'll probably just suck up all the debris and make a new satellite. So that saves you launch costs, and it creates some other risks in space, but we don't need to go there. And then a good crisis. Never let a good crisis go to waste. And why do I say that? Because you have to work together. You are not a single entity in any organization. And you are solving problems together. Not solving problems the way you want to. You're solving the problems the way the mission or business can still operate. And so we had an intrusion in the Deep Space Network. And it is exactly what the title is. And it is connected to the International Space Station Mission Control Center. That was 7 months of work, 1,800 servers. And at that moment, the head of human exploration came to my office, first time he's ever been to a CIO's office, and said, what do I need to do? It was that much of a crisis. And got to brief the vice president's office and Space Council, and they were all our friends. And it was really kind of embarrassing that someplace as smart as NASA messed up. And so you can see where then he says yes, he hires a cyber professional, and that cyber professional, I saw her all the time. In fact, one of my team helped pick her. Some of my team was on the interview panel. That's how that crisis, how telling the story, how providing data and sticking with it at that moment, it was a change across NASA. And that change resulted in, because I forgot to say this last time, when I said we were doing poorly at risk, anybody does FSMA reporting? Yes. I was like, why does the data always change? And that is so NASA went from high risk, like really bad scores, and a couple of congressional hearings, to managing risk. And we did it in 4 years. And we did it with stories, data, and a couple of good crises. So just, I could not add any more to what you said, Sana. So I just wanted to put the other human layer on all of this is you don't do this alone. And in order to bring people to the table, you just need to take the data and the stories and a good crisis to the table in order to get people to listen and pay attention. Because if you didn't want to pay for cybersecurity at the front end, you're certainly not going to want to pay for ransomware.
Thank you, Renee. I'm going to have to talk to you afterwards about this crisis thing.
That's very useful, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
always threat that I'm going to hack a satellite to make people kind of think about it more, but I mean, I don't want to get to jail, so yeah, we should learn from you.
Well, that's this gray hair right here.
So to bring us home here, we do have to figure out how to consolidate this information, transfer it into models that can be used for the workforce. And one critical way of doing that is to create job roles and have those job roles actually align with what the space industry needs. So I want to ask you, Sana, to close us out here with an answer to how you think your work might help to inform future job roles and in the workforce.
I mean, that's really a huge question, I would say. I will draw from my point earlier about collaboration. I think creating roles will be as part of that collaboration and awareness that I was talking about, and the good crisis that Rennie was saying. So when people think about the importance of that, they will think, okay, we need someone to lead on this. I don't want to name it. I mean, is it cyberspace analyst or wherever? It's just the person who has the skills to go and respond to the threat or solve the problem or secure the system in a proactive way. And that can be done through different ways. I mean, as we created the need for cybersecurity in general, we should do the same efforts for space cybersecurity by creating like curriculums, modules, courses, certificates, apprenticeships, all of those, I mean, and those cannot be created by university only, because if I go to University of Bristol and say, I want to create a cybersecurity for space curriculum, they would say, okay, who's going to hire these people, right? So, I mean, they will just shut me down, definitely, because if I go there and I say, like, this company and NASA and ESA and UK Space Agency and so on, they said we would hire the people you would be graduating if you teach them the skills at this level. And that kind of creates, I mean, we could create these roles together, we could create the skills. And I think it's just not, I mean, I don't think we can afford waiting until we create all of this, because this takes years. I think we have already the skills in the cybersecurity sectors. What we should do, just like to probably migrate these people to the space sector. They have already the basic skills like I had, and then we add to them like some certificates, some modules. I could think of them like just come in to get a 6 month, module and get out with kind of extra skills that would get them into the market. And that will drive. I mean, once you get the first kind of cohort of people, then the second will come in easily, because the companies and the industry and the government will recognize the benefit of those, and then they will invest more. So it's like a snowball effect. So I think there is like a mixture of creating new things, but also, reusing what we have already, because we have a huge kind of I know there is a shortage, but we still have a good kind of cyber-skilled workforce. We can steal them from other sectors to the space, and I think because this is very important. But also one last point, and this is I struggle with in UK, and I don't know how it works in USA. The companies that are working in the space system, they expect people at a certain skills level at the entry. It's not possible at this point. I think they will need to put in effort to train these people to get them up to the level they want them to be in. And that will create that kind of workforce of a short-term, long-term, and medium-term, and that keep going this resilient workforce.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. You're getting more applause from the audience. This is awesome. All right, well, we have just a couple minutes left for questions, but I want to thank my co-panelists here, my team, Fireside Chatters. Appreciate you both very much. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing to contribute to cybersecurity for space and leading the way for the future.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Erin. Good. So we've got a couple minutes for questions.
Yeah. Anyone have any questions? Should we get you a mic?
I want to see Barbara run.
Good morning. We teach our students war is changing. It's not bombs and missiles as much anymore as it is protecting water grids, protecting energy grids, those types of things. I'm sure we're already there, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How close are we to threat actors launching satellites, say, to take out the Internet Space Station, to take out communication satellites? Like, we hear the term on the news, Golden Dome and things like that, but how do we tell our students to prepare for those kinds of careers?
So one is it's not in anyone's imagination anymore, let's just say that. The second point, in fact, that I will offer is the United States Air Force has now gotten to 27 hours from need to launch in that, and the goal is to get that shorter and shorter. I mean, part of it is to talk about space as contested war. There's war in space. It's probably the simplest, most dramatic, and it is dramatic, way to put that. How to prepare for it is to first, don't let your imagination put barriers up. If you can imagine it, James Bond, then it can happen. And if you think with possibilities in mind, both for an attack vector as well as for yourself, then you can solve the problem. And always use your superpower of ask for help. And that's how you prepare. You do what Sana has outlined, which is go get the education, then get your hands on keyboard and seek that experience. But never, ever let your mind stop you from growing and moving forward or laterally, just like our threat actors do, in order to be where you want to be to do your best. So imagination, mindset, and your superpower of ask for help, plus Sana's part.
If I could just add to that briefly, Space ISAC operates a watch center, and we collect what we call open source information. We're not the government, but we're monitoring the feeds daily so we can put together a daily report, and we're not hiding this very well from the public anymore. I mean, you can find dozens and dozens of articles a week that demonstrate the capability of our adversaries, the US and our allies' adversaries, as well as the technological skills and capabilities that even the US has and our allies. So there's a lot going on that you can read just in the news if you want to, and you can also subscribe to the Watch Center alerts if you want to follow up with me on that. It's in the UCCS Cybersecurity Building, so I just want to give a shout out to UCCS for hosting us there and allowing this Watch Center capability to exist. Well, I think that's all we've got. So thank you all again. Let's give a giant round of applause to Dr. Beldwith and Renee Wynn. Thank you.